We've made no secret here that we dig the uniforms that appear in Star Trek. These last few years have given us a wealth of material to enjoy, even if it has burned through my cosplay budget. A small, alright, significant, price to pay to look pretty, especially when one wants to fit in with Starfleet's best. However, new and variant uniforms are hardly a new thing in the franchise. Alterations have been made more times than in a tailor's shop, with enough to create a list like this, let's be real. There are those which burn into the minds of the audience and those that come with a resounding, "Oh yeah, I'd forgotten about that one." Don't worry, we've had to do a bit of a reminder crash course as well while compiling this list, so keep your shirt tucked in, hem those dresses and don those cheeky caps. These are the uniforms that may never appear in the prime timeline, though here's hoping, and that we still salivate over when they pop up on screen. I'm Sean Ferrick for TrekCulture, and here are the alternate reality uniforms ranked worst to best. Number 10. Yesterday's Enterprise. Yesterday's Enterprise introduces a version of the future that is far darker than any we'd like to live in. Here, the Klingon Empire never softened towards Starfleet, and a war raged for much of the 24th century. By 2366, it seemed as though Klingon victory was all but assured, which may explain the darker uniforms. These were very similar to the established ones seen aboard the Enterprise D, with subtle differences. Dark cuffs were added to the sleeves, with belts and a solid collar also. There wasn't really much explanation as to why these changes were made, other than to tone down the department colours. The one-piece jumpsuit worn by officers in the first and second seasons of The Next Generation returned without any significant changes, bar the addition of a belt or harness worn over them. The uniforms are perhaps most notable for slinking their way through to the true timeline, demonstrated by LaForge as he sits with Guinan at episode's end. Number 9. Mirror Universe, 22nd Century. The Terran Empire variations of the Enterprise-era jumpsuits are fairly close to their Prime Universe counterparts. This is most evident in the male characters, as the female characters were given the standard evil lady trim, meaning they were given less material, so that more skin could appear. The real focus for In a Mirror Darkly was the updated TOS uniforms bearing the new Defiant Delta. When TOS was on the air, each individual ship and starbase had their own Delta, with the now standard one hailing from the Enterprise. However, Bob Justman put a stop to this, per Roddenberry's instructions, before the third season, so the Defiant originally had no unique Delta. For In a Mirror Darkly, a special Delta was created for the ship, first seen on the chest of a slain redshirt, then on the Enterprise crew after they've commandeered the vessel. In truth, this entry combines both the 22nd and 23rd century, though they make a great pairing, truth be told. Number 8. Barash's Illusion. When it came to the uniforms to include on this list, we wondered how best to categorize them. Technically, this uniform never existed, as it was all part of a plot by the alien child Barash to convince Riker to stay with him. On the other hand, it's a uniform that we the audience see on screen, therefore it counts. This uniform is like a combination of Admiral Nakamura's uniform from The Measure of a Man and an inspiration for some of those that will be seen in Star Trek Picard. The black bar across the shoulders strikes a little too thick, with the red topping feeling like an afterthought. We must be kind, presumably Barash was none too skilled with the finer points of tailoring. Still, it is the one new Starfleet uniform created for a future imperfect, so it does tend to stick out. Whatever the case, Picard does wear that thing well. If nothing else, it was fun to see those new comm badges introduced, horizontal division bars and all. Number 7. Mirror Universe, 23rd Century, TOS and Discovery. The original episode to introduce the Mirror Universe is Mirror Mirror, the seminal second season episode of the original series. Here, many of the Terran Empire uniforms are a perfect match, bar the insignia and a nice sash or two, for their Prime Universe counterparts. Kirk and Uhura receive the biggest changes. Uhura, along with Marlena Moreau, gets to show off her midriff, no small feat in the 60s, while Kirk sells tickets to the gun show as his arms are completely bare. The uniforms effectively capture the militaristic feel of this brutal regime. This inspiration continues into Discovery's interpretation of the universe. There, the Terran Empire wore uniforms that were closer to armour, which honestly feels a lot safer at a time of backstabbing, literally, and betrayal. While these earlier Terran uniforms were more practical, perhaps they simply weren't stylish enough for the time of James T. Kirk and his crew, saying that they may get the last laugh as they look set to return in the Section 31 long track. Number 6. Confederation of Earth. When Q sent Picard, Raffi, Jurati, Eleanor and Rios to a dark version of their present, Starfleet vanished. It was replaced by the brutal Confederation of Earth, a xenophobic organization bent on human domination of the galaxy. As one could imagine, their uniforms shunned bright colours for a utilitarian black. General Picard was depicted in several different styles. His first set of clothing was a simple black ensemble, though he quickly discovered a painting on the wall of his house. Here, the general was shown in a uniform inspired by the monster Maroons, though entirely black. Another variant, shown in the photo attached, seems to be closer to the contemporary uniforms worn by Starfleet. The shoulders bore a solid grey colouring, though this variant had black running across the wick, similar to the Starfleet uniform worn in the mid-2380s. Though the angles were certainly sharp, inspiring a look of dominance and fear, they were overall drab. Give us the colours of the Prime Universe any day. Number 5. Starbase Yorktown. The uniforms seen aboard Starbase Yorktown are quite different from those seen aboard serving starships. The bright colours worn by Starfleet officers are relegated here to the shoulders, with larger rank insignia adorning the collars. While Kirk is seen wearing a variation of this uniform, it generally doesn't enter wide use outside the starbase. It is evocative of those jumpsuits introduced in Deep Space Nine's debut season, then adopted by Voyager in its 7-year run. Star Trek has a history of starbase-only uniforms, seen as early as the original series. Though they admittedly look very comfortable, these uniforms leave a little to be desired in terms of style. Quite apart from wanting to see Kirk remain in charge of the Enterprise, it would do Chris Pine a disservice to take him out of Command Gold, so perhaps it was for the best for all concerned that he turned down Commodore Paris's promotion. Number 4. Prodigy's Cracked Mirror. Star Trek Prodigy's second season finally introduces audiences on screen to the Mirror Universe versions of Admiral Janeway and Chakotay. As the Prime Universe Chakotay, Gwyn, Dal, and the crew find themselves aboard a Terran Voyager A, we the audience get to see what a late 24th century Terran Empire looks like. The Terran Empire fell in the 23rd century, leading to a century of subjugation and resistance. However, once the mighty Cardassian Klingon Empire was defeated, things didn't head toward a rosy future, as one might have hoped. The Terran Empire quickly established itself once more, donning these new threads. What this suggests for the Mirror Universe is anyone's guess, even with these sinister officers finding it prudent to work with the good guys for a time. If nothing else, these uniforms certainly show off the work that Terrans must be doing in the gym, something that's fairly universal when it comes to that universe. Number 3. All Good Things, The Visitor, Endgame. The uniforms introduced in All Good Things would influence several of the alternate timelines going forward. The two-tone style of the Next Generation was retained, though a flap seemingly inspired by the monster Maroons was added. These were first seen aboard the USS Pasteur, designed by Robert Blackman. When another version of the future was glimpsed in The Visitor, Nog, Dax, and Bashir were all seen wearing these variants. O'Brien was also meant to appear, although Colomini was unavailable for filming. These uniforms would make another appearance in Endgame, featuring the first new Admiral variant. Riker had worn a more contemporary uniform in All Good Things, as worn by Janeway. These uniforms would serve to inspire those seen in the first and second seasons of Star Trek Prodigy, along with the comm badge seen on them as well. Number 2. The Kelvin Timeline. One could easily write a list on the uniforms that appear in the Kelvin timeline, and frankly one might, so watch this space. These uniforms are clearly inspired by William Ware Theis's designs from the 60s, though updated for a 2000s audience. The first versions seen in Star Trek 09 aboard the Kelvin are quite similar to those in All Good Things, which are then replaced by clothing more closely resembling the original series. This is retained for Into Darkness, though by Beyond they had evolved again. The uniforms are now more angled, with more definition in the collars and shoulders. If the earlier uniforms were easier to move in, these newer ones looked more formal. The uniforms seen on file, worn by the crew of the USS Franklin, deserve a special mention here. As the Franklin vanished before the Narada's incursion and creation of the Kelvin timeline, they are technically alternate universe variants of Starfleet, though they have yet to make an appearance in any historically documented event in the Prime Universe. Number 1. Alternate Future, 23rd Century. When Admiral Pike stood up in Equality of Mercy, I let out an audible whoop, for the monster Maroon had returned. This version of Pike, via the handy Klingon time crystals from Borath, goes back in time to prevent his younger self from altering history. By altering history. It makes sense in the episode. Bernadette Croft designed a beautiful new refit of the classic movie uniforms. They skew closer to the updated original series designs for Strange New Worlds, while still clearly retaining the look of those films. The rank insignia remain largely the same, and the ludicrously warm undershirts remain in place. The flap is slightly lower than those seen on Kirk & Co., with a longer shoulder strap to hold it in place. These designs now also bear the delta patterning seen in the rest of the Strange New Worlds uniforms, an addition that brings both eras closer together. In terms of updating an existing look, this is easily one of the best designs that has been created for Star Trek. That's everything for our list today, folks. What did you think? And also, what do you think might have been missing? Let us know in the comments below. I have been Sean for TrekCulture. You can follow me at the various socials at Sean Ferrick. And please make sure that you're following TrekCulture at TrekCulture on the various socials as well. You are awesome. You are wonderful. Look after yourself. Live long and prosper. And I will talk to you soon.